That is a fantastic overview. Thank you for sharing that, and telling us about the importance of coaching. What you talked a little bit about the different experiences you've had, but what specific experiences inspired you to write coaching, right? The secret comment code to uncommon leadership.
Okay, so let's just rewind this a little bit for a lot of you who've just come in. Let's define the secret code, right? Yeah, coaching the secret code. Why is it the secret code, etc. To me, I found it, as I started doing a lot of my coaching work, I found it very interesting that despite being aware that your engagement levels and any engagement levels or productivity levels of anybody are directly correlated to your manager or your boss, right? This is not rocket science. We've known about it for years. There's been a lot of research on it, and we know about this, right? There's just so much literature on it. There's a Gallup survey, there are engagement surveys year on year. Yet, despite all the data that was available, we continue to be in the corporate world rather pathetic coaches, I have to say, right? We're abysmally bad at capitalizing on the strengths of our people. You see that in the corporate world, you see that all around you, because somehow we've grown up on this diet of saying the one who has all the answers shines the brightest, right? And as leaders and as we go through our careers, we constantly tell people what to do because we've been successful. This has been our playbook. Those that work with us, our colleagues, we tell them this is how you should do it. Hey, this is what made me successful. So for us, it's very diametrically opposed to this whole notion of coaching. There've been enough surveys that Harvard Business Review has done, asking managers, saying, "Do you think you're a good coach?" And almost always they say yes. But if you try and decode it, they say yes. But when they think they're coaching somebody, they're telling people what to do, right? And coaching is all about asking. It's all about asking powerful questions, open-ended questions, so that the individual can find his or her own path. And we've never been conditioned to do this, right? We constantly reward people for having the answers. This whole business of being curious, about asking, doing things differently is just not something. So I found this deeply fascinating as a subject. As I got deeper into coaching, and like many of you, and most of you, I went to Chicago booth. So everything has to have it can't just be fuzzy, right? It has to be backed by a lot of research and data. And that was a journey. As I started to understand why, despite all this data, most managers make bad coaches, and how can we change this narrative? And so that in many ways, I guess, was responsible for the advent of the book. I didn't want this book to be this lovely read on coaching where you give them people a few models, etc. I wanted it really to be thought-provoking, and also then leave people with some tangible outcomes, some, as you said, tips and tricks on how you can be a better leader coach. And I guess my overarching message was, it doesn't matter if you're in the corporate world. It doesn't matter if you are a freelance artist. It doesn't matter if you're a yoga instructor. It doesn't matter if you're a student, right? You have to think about coaching as a life skill. It's the ability, the desire to take others along in the journey. It's about giving more power to the question than the answer. It's about pausing, it's about listening, right? And it's about making someone a better version of themselves. And when you shine the light on someone, you shine even brighter. That's what the book is about.
I really like that sentiment, and so much of what you just said resonates with my own, where I am myself in the career, and I'm sure a lot of folks may also be at that point of their career where you've gotten to where you are because of telling people what to do, and now it's that transition that is needed. So this is an event hosted by Chicago Booth Women's Network. So I want you to share a little bit about, when you think about coaching, is it different for women versus men? And if so, what are those differences?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and I was writing the book, it's some 80,000 words, or maybe just under 90,000. It was meant to be 50,000. I kept adding chapter after chapter. And I figured as I was doing this research that, enabling women leaders, or how do you coach women leaders, deserved a chapter of its own. And lots of protests, I have to say. And my editor was like, "Why are you derailing this? Coaching is the same for everybody." A wonderful professor who's also my mentor said, "Listen, it's great, but you have to be very clear about what this book is about. But let me, for once, I stood my ground, and I'm happy I did. So here's what I guess is my take on this, right? The end destination or the goal is the same. It doesn't matter which gender you are. When you coach somebody, you make them a better version of themselves. You make them more capable. You help them, become better at what they do. You make them shine brighter, as I keep saying. So the goal remains the same. The path to getting there, or the areas that you focus on when it comes to women leaders versus your male leaders in organizations, could be slightly different, or it could be more customized or bespoke, I guess, is what this chapter is all about. And I'm going to unpack this thought for you a little bit. In the course of writing the book, there's a chapter which talks about what are the key outcomes when you coach somebody, right? So when you're coaching somebody, what should you expect? You can't write a book on coaching and leadership without knowing what it'll give you. And I I looked at a lot of research journals, etc. I couldn't find the answer anywhere. Strangely found it in a movie that my son was watching, Kung Fu Panda. He watches it like, I think, in multiples of 10 or something, but this time I happened to watch it. And I realized the answers everywhere, right? It's in sport, it's in performing arts, it's in movies, it's everywhere. And like a good academic of sort, I put this model together, and I'll quickly take you through it. I'll show you some slides later. But essentially, when you coach somebody as a leader or otherwise, there are 4 things that you focus on. 1, you make them more capable. Obviously, you want someone to be better tomorrow than they are today. That's why you coach them, right? This is also where you help them really untap the reservoirs of hidden talent or creativity, as we say. It's about innovation. It's about doing things differently. So that bucket is capability. The second one, consciousness, right? Consciousness is another word for self-awareness. It's a word we use very often, saying a good leader is one who's self-aware, i.e., you know what your strengths are, but you're also open to understanding that there are areas that you could do slightly differently, right? So that's consciousness, second C. The third C is really about confidence, and the fourth is clarity. So clarity, a lot of people that you talk to will say coaching is all about clarity. The answers lie within you, but a coach who's a sounding board is, as I said earlier, will help you untangle those knots and then weave these distinct patterns, right? So that you can focus on the next steps. So the fourth C, which is confidence, is what I've really focused on in this chapter. And I think what I was trying to say was that despite all our successes, despite being wonderful at what we do, despite being capable and competent, often what holds us back as women is not the fact that we're not capable or we're not competent or we don't know our stuff. It's our confidence. It's our belief in ourselves. It's our constant attitude that where we question ourselves. Am I good enough? Will I be able to do this role? All of you have heard about the imposter syndrome. So it's often the confidence, the fourth C, which holds us back. So when I advise leaders who are coaching their teams that have many women leaders, I say, please, whatever happens, this is a one cornerstone that you really, really need to focus on. Because as I said earlier, it's not our confidence, it's not our capability, it's often our confidence.
That's fantastic. And, the idea of the cornerstone personally is very powerful for me because, confidence, to your point, I've seen it. I've seen firsthand how confidence can oftentimes promote or even detract folks. So as you think about, you touch on the cornerstone, but in your book, and I know not everyone may have read the book, but you also talk about the importance of mentors, coaches, and sponsors. Can you just tell us more and how they play into this idea of the cornerstones?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we did that survey, so we'll get some data after this, right? Okay, so I think these are interesting. This is an interesting conversation to have because, frankly, before I started writing the book, I didn't know any better myself, right? We use these terms quite interchangeably. I have a mentor, or so-and-so is coaching me. I have a great coach. So let's talk about these two terms first before we move on to the third category. While these are both truly valuable roles that people play in your lives, they're different. Not to say one is better than the other. I urge you to have both, but I think it's important to understand the difference. A mentor typically is somebody who's older, not necessarily like old, but someone who's been there and done it. A lot of wisdom, experience. This individual does not need to necessarily be part of your current work ecosystem. Could be a family friend, could be an ex-boss, could be an ex-client, someone you really, really look up to, you trust, and someone who truly believes in you. Now, this individual gives you advice. This relationship is prescriptive in nature. It can often last for a very long time, for decades over the course of your life journey, not necessarily your career journey, right? It could be an uncle, it could be anybody, right? But these are people who really want you to do well, and they will give you advice. Take the advice for whatever it's worth, but you know that they have your best interests at heart. So they're telling you what to do. Think of these people as, watching all the action from a balcony and giving you their nuggets or their pearls of wisdom. Now, a coach is very different. A coach is typically here and now in your current ecosystem, right? This individual is not guiding your career, your life journey, but is really guiding your current practice. But when I say guide, they ask, they don't tell. They don't, it's not prescriptive in nature. They will ask you powerful questions so you can come up with the answer. And unlike the mentor who's typically watching it from the balcony, these people are on the dance floor with you, right? They're getting their hands dirty, they're rolling up their sleeves, they're giving you real-time feedback. And so, yes, they should know a thing or two about whatever you currently do, right? Mm-hmm. Your current work ecosystem. And these relationships can also morph. The same coach perhaps will not be there for the rest of your career. These relationships will evolve and change, whereas mentors are typically long-term. So understand the difference. One guides and tells, and the other one simply asks.
Great. And then what about the sponsor?
Yeah. So, this is a term that's become very popular of late. Is a very well-known HBR article, which says women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. Over-mentor, I understand, because everybody wants to tell us what to do. Great. People are constantly giving you advice, right? The coaching piece has just started to evolve, this whole business of asking powerful questions. There's a third category, and this third category could ideally be one of these two people. And I urge you to think harder about having a sponsor in your life. A sponsor is somebody who is essentially someone who's very influential. But unlike a mentor, this person just doesn't tell you what to do. This person opens doors for you. This person will go out on a limb to recommend you. This person will pick up the phone and tell somebody he's a board member and says, hey, I think Fabiola would make a fantastic head of Asia Pacific. Let's interview her, right? I have had sponsors in my life, but I didn't know they were my sponsors. And often I felt awkward asking people. I thought I was asking them for favors. But I think this mindset needs to change. If there's somebody who truly believes in you and thinks that you're great at what you do, you have that relationship, I see absolutely no reason why you can't ask. And they can only give you a foot through the door. The rest you have to do yourself, right? Mm-hmm. But we often don't nurture these sponsors. We have people who tell us what to do, and hopefully we have people who ask us powerful questions. But this third category makes all the difference. And if you do a lot of studies around gender, you will realize that most senior men leaders have had a sponsor at one time or the other. People who've constantly nurtured them and taken them along in their careers. Whereas we have somehow shied away. We think about this as networking or asking for favors. So that's it. And by the way, a mentor could easily be a sponsor as well, right? These are not distinct categories. But so I think the best definition of a sponsor is one who invests in you, who will talk positively about you when you're not in the room. But clearly this person has the ability to make things happen for you.
Yeah. And with that, I'm going to invite Caroline to share the results from the polls, because I'm curious to see, one of the questions that we asked earlier were around, do you have a mentor? Do you have a coach? Do you have a sponsor? And all of you, let me know if you can see the poll results. But if not, I'm seeing that 57% of the audience has a mentor, 14% have a coach, and 14% have a sponsor. So it definitely looks like we all have plenty of mentors, but the coaching and the sponsors are lacking. So, you know, going back to this question of the importance of having the mentors, the sponsors, and the coaches, in the absence of the coaching or the enablement, Ruchira, how do women or men stand, specifically women, but how do they stand to lose? What is the gap of success in men versus women absent these really important players?
Okay, it's a very layered question. Let me try and simplify it in my own head. Okay, when they ask me the difference between, as you did, coaching women versus men, right? We talked about the confidence factor, which is clearly something I feel very strongly about. But that's not enough, right? There are a couple of other things that we need to think about. Confidence, but also we have to start risk taking for people, for our women leaders. Let me explain. They always talk about nature versus nurture, and somehow this whole thing is, we are made to believe that we were born that way, we were wired that way. It's perhaps not true if you look at a lot of the research that goes around. Women are expected to be perfect or nearly perfect, and that's our conditioning. You'll read a lot of interesting anecdotal evidence where researchers have said that if young boys and young girls are playing, if you get your lovely frilly frock dirty, you're constantly told, come on, this is not how girls behave. But if a boy messes, his attire, etc., it's perfectly okay, because that's what business about boys will be boys. These things start very early in our life. And the reason I bring this up is, as we evolve and as we grow and we nurture, we mature, that stays with us. We somehow believe that we have to be either perfect or nearly perfect. And study after study will tell us that we don't even raise our hand up for either important roles or things that are out of our comfort zone, because we think we don't tick all the boxes, right? HP did this very, very famous study. I don't know if you guys have read it. It's been around for a very long time. What Hewlett Packard was trying to do was, they were trying to figure out, they had advertised an internal role in the organization, and they were trying to bring in more women into senior roles. And when they looked at the data, it was very, very interesting. So it was a role profile. It had, you had to be XYZ. This was a, a criteria for applying for the role. And when they dissected it, they realized that men who had applied for it literally had maybe 67 or 60%. They ticked 60% of that criteria, yet they'd applied. And women did not apply for it unless they were 100% there, right? So there's a huge gap in there. So it goes back to confidence and our own self-belief, right? We want to be perfect. We won't even apply for jobs. We won't even raise our hand. We won't say yes to things because we say, I'm not sure I'm good enough. And unless I can do it right, I'm not going to do it at all, right? Often we spend more time thinking than actually doing things. So first is the confidence, and second is the business of, we have to learn to take more risks. It has to come from within. And we need to do this with each other, right? In our own ecosystems, as coaches, we have to imbibe that. And the third thing is this unconscious bias, right? Even as leaders ourselves, right? It's not often when the hiring decisions are made or promotion decisions are made, or when we give people roles that we deem to be, where you have to burn the midnight oil. It's not always malintent, by the way, right? We say, hey, someone's just had a baby. I'm not sure I should give this person, I don't know, I'm making this up, night shifts. Fair enough. You feel for the person. You truly think that, this is hard work. But you can't take the decision without discussing it with the individual, right? A good coach, good leader has to give you that option and has to coach you through the alternatives and perhaps talk about how they can support you if you truly did want to do that role, right? But often what happens is we take that decision on the behalf of people, right? I mean, so many years ago, when I call it my BC days, before child days, I remember going from Singapore to Clermont-Ferrand in France. I was working for this large automobile firm. Mm-hmm. My French is basic, but I can get by. And I had this interview with this guy who's the head of strategy. He's a client of mine, and they wanted me to take on a role in India to run strategy for them for India and South Asia. And so I went to see him in France, and it was a stilted conversation. He insisted on talking to me in English. My French was crappy, but anyway, we didn't like each other, but that's not the point. The point was he started asking me questions like, but you're wearing Tiffany pearls and you come to meet me. How will you manage automobile dealers in India? So I said, I've come and worn my Tiffany pearls. I don't even think they were Tiffany, but I've worn these pearls to see you because I'm at the head office. When I go back to India, I'm Indian. I know how to deal with, believe me, I'm not going to dress like that. I'm in a suit because I've come to see you. So fine. But then he says, okay, why don't we move you here to the head office in France? And so I paused for a bit. Obviously, I wasn't going to do it without knowing the money, etc. So he said, this is where you belong. This is the kind of thing. I can't see you with automobile dealers, dirty dealers. So I don't know where this conversation was going. But before I could answer, before I could do anything about it, he literally just turned around and said, it's never going to work out. And I said, what does that mean? He says, your husband will never follow you. You're married, right? I said, yeah, but what does he do? So I said, he's in financial services. So he said, oh, he's never going to follow you. There's nothing he can do in this village. I looked at him, I said, but it's something I perhaps could discuss with him and we could figure it out. But he told me about his wife and how his wife had given up his career and how, women should be with their spouses and kids. We went into this little thing. We parted ways very nicely. But the whole idea of me, talking to you through this, how does he know I couldn't do it? Maybe my spouse was happy to do it. I think he wanted to live a life where he would, visit wineries and have a lot of fromage. I think he was very happy to do it, actually. And we didn't have a kid in the equation. But this guy didn't give me the choice, right? So these choices are for us to make. And these choices belong to us entirely. At the end of that, I could have still gone back and said, it doesn't work for me. But you can't take decisions on other people's behalf. And that's an unconscious bias. We think we're doing the right thing for others, but we aren't. So if we truly need, to coach people, especially women leaders, we have to watch out for three things. We have to truly focus on their confidence. We have to tell them it's okay to take risks. And the third thing is we really need to think harder about these deep-seated biases that we all have. Men, women, doesn't matter. In our mind, we think we're doing the right thing for people, right? So I don't know if I gave you the right answer, but that to me are the three tenets of how you coach women leaders.
No, it definitely makes sense. Thank you for sharing that story, because I think it's important to hear that the cornerstones can equip us to, in that situation, have said, hey, that's a decision for me to make. There's no offer on the table, so let's figure out how we get that offer on the table. So thank you for that. I guess I want to hear a little bit more, and I do want to be mindful of time because I know we have some fantastic slides to share, and then I do want to leave time for Q&A. Can you talk about, we've heard about you're going to share a little bit more about the secret code in a couple of minutes, and you talked about what the 4 cornerstones are, some examples of where it has been applied, where it can help us to get that promotion, to take that risk, to apply for those roles. Can you share about an instance where you've seen it be applied unsuccessfully?
Yeah, I mean, the secret code is really the ability to take people along in the journey. It's to enable them, right? That's what distinguishes a good leader from a fantastic one, or an average leader from an extraordinary or an uncommon one, as I say, right? It's the ability to maximize someone's not just current performance, but also their future potential. And you do that through a series of non-directive, right? That's the word, non-directive and self-enabling conversations. That's coaching as I define it. And that in my mind is that secret code. When can it go wrong? Let's be honest that it takes 2 to tango, right? I started by saying that most managers make bad coaches. We have data for it. And we know that could happen for a variety of reasons. One is because when we think we are coaching, we are essentially telling people what to do. Remember, we were never taught how to coach. We were always taught to tell people, to solve problems. That's what good managers do. So that's one aspect of it. Also, there is a deep-seated thing around self-assurance. A lot of us, when we coach and build and enable others, we have to be truly self-assured. Right? So many times when I talk to people or in the course of the research, they said, oh, my boss is jealous of me. Oh, he won't do this because he thinks then, I might get the role. Maybe so. And let's face it, it happens. It does take someone who's rather self-assured to be able to be rather generous about pulling someone else up, right? It does. And obviously, organizations have to play a part in ensuring that these insecurities don't seep in. You have to be intrinsically motivated. So that's one reason that you don't always get the kind of bosses who believe in you. And then again, we also have bosses who become leaders just because they were great performers, right? If you look at history, the best captain of a team, whether it's soccer or football or cricket, sometimes they are not the best individual player. We just assume that someone's fantastic at what he or she does, is the best and the brightest. We will elevate that person to be the leader. Now, remember, even these people need to be coached and nurtured so they in turn can coach others. Just because you're blue-eyed and, blue-eyed boy or girl, and because you're fabulous at what you do, doesn't mean you'll naturally become a great leader. Because the traits that make for a good solo performer, ambition, narcissism, this complete focus, is very different from what it takes to be a leader, which is empathy and taking people along in the journey and collaboration, etc. So that's one thing, right? We have to be very clear about how we build our leaders. Otherwise, this whole business of expecting to get coached will clearly not happen, right? As you said, you used the word school wrong. But there's another aspect of it. It's also about us, those that are seeking the coaching. Because coaching requires the ability to leave your ego at the door. When you are going to open yourself up to being coached, the hard part is not to learn something new. It's about unlearning your own beliefs. It's about taking yourself out of the comfort zone. It's about, admitting that listen, hey, I'm not fabulous. And someone's holding up a mirror to me. And this doesn't sound right, but is this who I am? It's about asking for feedback, seeking feedback regularly and actually being open to taking that feedback, right? How often do we seek that feedback proactively and act upon it? So it does take two to tango. We know that by definition, most of our managers are not great, but we also need to constantly seek that feedback and be open to receiving it.
Absolutely. So with that, do you want to jump into the slide? So I'm happy to.
Yeah, sure. It's 5 minutes and I'll just basically show the concepts that I just talked about. I won't take long. And then we can open this up and have a conversation.
Yes.
And maybe people will show me their faces like Gail has. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. Are the slides visible now?
Yes.
Okay, Cheryl's endorsement. Okay, this is what I was saying really. Just the definition. When we say what does it mean to coach as a leader, think about it as a process whereby a leader or a coach, you could be someone seeking that coaching, but also giving that coaching, right? To those around you, your colleagues, etc. But what you focus on is not just their current performance, i.e. how well they're doing right now, but also the future potential through a series of non-directive and self-enabling conversations, which means you don't tell them what to do, you ask, and you enable them by being able to try out different things, by giving them the ability to occasionally fail and learn through this iteration of failure and success. We talked about this very quickly, so I won't spend time on it. A mentor is typically someone who's directive, brings in a lot of wisdom and experience, typically older, but has access to a network, gives you advice from the sidelines and guides your career journey. But your coach in question is the one who asks powerful, probing questions, helps you find your own path. And of course, we're talking about the leader as a coach, but a lot of us have external coaches, and those principles apply equally, right? If you don't find someone within your ecosystem that's coaching you, or you need one in addition, absolutely go all out and get that coach for yourself. These are the 4 cornerstones of coaching. It's called the 4C plus model. And the reason I call it plus is while these cornerstones are capability, which is A, being better than you are today, unleashing those reservoirs of innovation and creativity, etc. Consciousness, self-awareness, clarity, and confidence. These 4 cornerstones cannot come alive unless there's a culture that actively promotes coaching. And what I mean by that is that if you're in an organization, this can't just be lip service. You can't just train people on coaching and then expect everybody will become a fantastic coach. It needs to come from within, but the organization also needs to have some clear KPIs or norms. Why they have to evaluate people who are great coaches and actually reward them for it. And if you feel that you're not part of a large setup, you're an entrepreneur, or you do your own thing, or like me, you're a gig worker, if you want to build that culture of coaching with the people that you work with or work for, ask for feedback. When you ask, you're able to give. You have to create an ecosystem where it's okay to seek and to receive. Lastly, and I think that's what I've been saying all along, coaching is no longer a specialty. Please, it's not something you do in addition to being a leader. A good leader you can't call somebody a good leader or a manager unless you're a good coach, right? It's part and parcel of your job responsibility. Just quickly, it's a check off. I won't go into details here, but if you want to sort of hone your coaching skills, or you feel that you're already doing it but want to become better at it, really focus on knowing yourself first, self-awareness. Build some really genuine bonds with those that work with you, work for you in your ecosystem. Trust is really the foundation of everything you do. And you have to create safe spaces for people, right? Where you can be yourself without being fear of being penalized or told that this isn't right. You can't feel foolish about asking a question. A leader has to be able to create a safe space where you can speak up, speak your mind. You also have to be consistent. I mean, I don't know, but I've always come across bosses in my life who are fantastic to you one day and they're lovely, and something's gone wrong. They've had a fight with the spouse, etc., and then they're horrible the next moment or the next day, or they approve something and then suddenly everything changes. Listen, leadership is also about consistency. You need to tell people what transpired and why you changed your decision. So consistency, and it's also about having a growth mindset, which is believing that everybody can change. You can't start coaching somebody thinking that, hey, yeah, I don't know, this person's a write-off, but let's see what we can do with it. That's never going to fly. So to me, all of these things and more will matter. And yeah, I'm just going to close this by saying, this is Kathleen Hogan's quote. She's she's a global head of HR for Microsoft. And she says, basically, if you want to coach your way to uncommon leadership, you really have to focus on guiding the leaders of today so they can empower the leaders of tomorrow.